Now, the story of the woman and her womb is a difficult one. It's a conversation that hurts, but it must be had. Many women struggle to have children, and those that don't struggle sometimes find themselves losing their babies. On today's episode, I'm joined by Khumo Ngwenya, who's an angel mom, and she's here to share a little bit about her journey. Hi, Khumo.
Hi, Kayise.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Could you take us through your journey of pregnancy? How did you find out? Where were you? What was happening in your life at the time?
I was actually with my sister, Lola Mami, and I was pure, and she was noticing that I'm very feverish, sickish. And at the time, my husband and I were sharing a car, so she was at my place with her car. And she decided, dude, let's just maybe go check it out at the doctor and just see. Because at least if you've got a flu or something, we can just get medication for you. But if it's something else, then at least you know. That was the conversation we had. I then let my husband know that I was going to head over to the doctor and just go get a checkup and just see what's up. We got to the doctor. I remember feeling very calm, very, okay. I wasn't expecting anything. We went and the doctor asked me several questions about my period. And I thought, but I'm here for a checkup. Like, I didn't, expect anything else to happen. And she just asked me anyway. And she felt to ask, when was your last period? And I told her, and she was like, oh, okay, cool. Would you mind if I do, just a urine test, just so that we rule out all the possible, scenarios, and then we know what we're dealing with when you're done. We did that. She came back about 15 minutes later, and she asked me, so if it turns out you are pregnant, how are you feeling about that? And I thought, this is wild, but okay, I'll be happy, because my husband and I would love children. We've always agreed that when the time felt right, or we would just go for it. So if that is the case, then I'm happy. She said, oh, thank God, because you are pregnant.
Yeah.
And this is now your journey, and how are you feeling? And, I cried on the spot. My sister was there. It was a very tender moment, My husband then joined us at the house, at the clinic, and he came straight from work. I then let him know, and that became like a very significant moment for us, because it dawned on us that, oh my gosh, we're going to be parents.
Yeah.
Like, that was like the really, the light in his eye that I could see that it feels right.
And how far along in your pregnancy were you when tragedy struck? And how did you lose your son?
So I was at 16 weeks. And I remember the beginning of that week being something that I couldn't articulate in words because I was so happy. The Monday, so that would be the 21st of October, we went to my gynae session as normal, and my mom went with me, and it became our dates. We'd usually go together because my husband most times wouldn't come. I'll be able to come because of work. And we had planned that he'd join like much later when there's activity, when there's a little more. But he was at the first screening, the first appointment. So I went to this particular appointment with my mother, and, my son was so bouncy. He was such a little... It was just amazing watching him on screen. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's going on
inside of me.
Like, wow, this baby's so happy. This baby's moving around and constantly... not shy, and immediately I started feeling such connections to my husband and similarities that I could feel, and I started telling myself, this is a daddy's baby. I don't know if it's a girl or a boy yet, but there's so much of this personality that I recognize that I might be different, but there's a link somewhere. Ubabak. And when we left that session, I remember in the car, I just started crying, and my mom was like, what's going on? And I was like, I'm just happy. Like, I'm really happy, because often in pregnancy, your first trimester is the most risky. The chances of miscarriage are higher. Yes. So getting to my 16-week mark, I felt a little more relieved. Like, I could finally start enjoying what I'm doing. I don't have to stress about, managing myself or making sure baby's okay. Now I was at a place where I was like, okay, this is good. Yeah.
And this is the journey I'm on. Until baby comes.
Yes.
And then what happened?
I was on my way to a event with a good friend of mine. And we were going to be there for the night. And, the event was in Nairobi. So, I got dressed up. I smelled good. But the nausea was gone. So I felt, I'm in my element. Let me just, let me finally exhale.
Yeah.
And just start being pregnant, be the mom now, But you're still Khumo, so you still get to go out and enjoy. And that's the spirit I held, going to that event with my friend. And all of a sudden, I'm in the middle of a allergic reaction. So I'm feeling the itches. I'm feeling my temperature's getting a bit hot. And I do have allergic reactions every now and then. I'm not particularly aware of what they are. But in this moment, I was very aware that I'm reacting to something.
Yeah.
So I let my husband know on my phone, listen, babe, I'm not feeling okay. I don't know what's going on. I tell him what I ate. I told him the same sequence getting up to where I am. And he decides, no, listen, find a paramedic and maybe let them know that you're having a reaction. Let them give you Allergex or something. Go talk to them.
Yeah.
So I went and I spoke to the organizers. I let them know I'm 16 weeks pregnant and I'm having an allergic reaction. I haven't eaten anything that I believe is wrong for me. So I also don't know what the cause may be, but I just know I need to get sorted out. And while I'm in hysteria in the bathroom, this lady, the paramedic, decides to ask me for my next of kin details. So while I'm scratching and itching and my mind is going a bit wobbly, I'm giving her my husband's name, my husband's last name, the phone number. She asked for his ID. She asked for quite a lot of things for this.
In this moment that you're going through this,
which was very overwhelming for me because I'm thinking, but is not to get me to the hospital the first protocol? Then you can follow up with all of these things. Anyway, they proceed to try to administer a drip in my arm. So when they see that, okay, this thing is not calming down, she then calls her assistant, the other paramedic. Now the two of them are in the bathroom with me and no one's allowed to come in. So they're trying to put this drip in and it's iapunyuga. Like, I'm not sure to this day if this lady's actually like trained or skilled to do what she was doing, but I was poked, several times, them trying to find my veins. Maybe when my friend got there, she's the one who was like, okay, listen, dude, I need to call Linda. I need to call your husband. We get that sorted out. She then calls him. So prior to this, my husband's not been informed that this situation is going sideways and where I need to be met. And all the while, they're telling my friend that they've called the ambulance and there's a loop, apparently, that they have to dispatch one call.
Yeah.
If there's no ambulances around, they have to wait until one responds. And that became the story. So in the midst of all of that, my water breaks. And I start freaking out because I'm like, no ways at 16 weeks can my cervix just open.
Yeah.
But my mouth is so tight because of what my body's going through. And in my head, I'm like, I'm trying to talk to myself to tell myself, dude, you need to calm down because you're putting the body in shock. And if the body's in shock, the baby might think it's time now. But it's so difficult to manage that, facilitate that conversation without someone present with me who's on my team, So I'm surrounded by strangers. No one's taking this seriously. I'm panicking.
Were you eventually then taken to the hospital?
Around 11:30, my husband arrived at the same time with the ambulance. I was then taken to the nearest hospital, which was somewhere in the near vicinity of the Nairok Sculpture Park. And because I was there, also the paramedic of the new ambulance now couldn't also administer any drip because now I'm bruised on my arms.
Yes.
So I'm taking all of this without any sedative, without any help to calm down. I get to the hospital, we get to the ER, and the gentleman who finds us, the doctor that was on call, was very relaxed. We got inside, he did a check, and he whoops out the ultrasound. He checks. And then he says, right, okay, I see what's happening. So he then points to the scan and he sees, right, you see there's usually a little bubble that baby's in? I said, yes. And he said, right, the reason baby is suspended is because there's fluid around the baby that is nutrient, that is vital to their development. And the reason why you're seeing this become very small is because that fluid is now leaked out.
Yes.
So I said, okay, cool. But I told them, I tried to tell them that
my water
broke. And he then says, all right, okay, so should I call your gynae? So in my haste, I'm like, cool, because she'll know what to do, because surely no one's hearing me. He then called her. She then says that they must bring me over to Park Lane, which is where I'd been consulting with my gynecologist. And the travel of that now becomes, but are you not going to do anything now while I'm here? This is now 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So officially the 23rd of October, I'm losing my son at every hour.
When were you officially informed that baby did
my
not
doctor,
make it?
the doctor that I went to at that hospital near Nirox then said it's an inevitable miscarriage.
What emotions were you going through at the time?
I was almost numb because of the body actually going through shock. In my mind, I was in mourning because I could see that no one's trying to do. It was like I didn't say I was pregnant, the way things were being treated. So there was no urgency. There was no, okay, let's try save your baby. Okay, you guys are very important. There was no feeling of
reassurance,
reassuring me that as a facility that deals with saving lives, we are about to try
and save your child. You and your child.
You know, so going to Park Lane, I'm driving around with my fluid leaking, and I must just accept that this is happening.
Take us through your healing journey.
My healing journey started properly after I had realized that I can't live in that moment forever. I can't relive that 24 hours, my whole life. And it's affecting who I am as a person. It's affecting who I am as my husband's wife. It's affecting me in all avenues of what I can be. And I felt like if I'm going to choose to stay under that rock and not let it do something for me, then I'm also failing my son, because he was here for a reason. And although he was happy, and you know, that image of him doesn't leave my mind. You know, that is the vision of him I choose to remember. And that's the memory of him I want to live far longer than the actual moment of when he passed. The biggest fear I had was, I'm going to start forgetting my son. He's going to exist in my mind alone. So I have to talk about it.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to keep his
remembering
memory going.
Yeah.
So that was just my thinking, that I need to make this count.
Do you think you'd ever be in a position to try again? Are you afraid? Is it something you're willing to do?
To be honest, we've been in this moment with my husband, and we decided very early on after losing our son that we do still want to try. And I was more grateful that it came from him than a pressure from me. He openly was just like, look, where are we with this? Because this is not it. Surely this is proof of concept. We've proven that we can conceive on our own. But where are you at?
Yeah,
what are you feeling emotionally?
Everywhere.
Because he was also trying not to be the pusher, you know? So there was a very healthy exchange between the two of us that we would keep trying.
I commend you. I really do commend you for coming out and saying it's got to be for a greater purpose than just me. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with me and with the viewers. And I wish you all the best. I wish you all the best, you and your husband.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys, that was Khumo Ngwenya, and she's an angel mom. A very touching story about losing her baby. Next up, we're going to be talking to Karabo and Pastor Jerry Zwane, who have been struggling to conceive, and they're here to share a little bit about their infertility journey. We'll see you after this. Thank you so much for tuning in every week to hear our stories of healing. Now, it is estimated that 1 in 6 couples suffer from infertility, which means about 8 million people in Southern Africa alone are affected. We're joined by Karabo and Pastor Jerry Zwane, who are here to share a little bit about their journey. Hello, how are you?
We're good, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
When did you discover that you were infertile?
Yes, we discovered that we were infertile on year number 5 of our marriage. The first 4 years was designed by plan. So we intended to study, we intended to bond with each other. So there was no pressure of falling pregnant.
Yes.
So the struggle was apparent, became obvious when we started trying. So we stopped contraceptives. And after 6 months into that, we started to consult and panic. So it was a shock, maybe more on her side because she never had a baby before. On my side, I already had a son.
Can you take us through the emotions, and I'll direct that to you, Karabo, that you went through when you found out that there was a big possibility that it might not happen?
Yeah, when you are first trying for a baby, you've got a name already. You've got dreams as a young couple. How are you going to decorate the nursery and all of that? So there's some sort of excitement that happens. You start telling your family members that you are trying. There comes a point though when it's not happening as fast as you wish it could. And the Bible, says, hope deferred makes the heart weary. So when we were, I think 5 years married, that's when we started feeling the pressure from family members, the church, the community. Simple questions such as, when are you having a baby? Would be things that really hurt my feelings at that time because year number 5, we had a miscarriage, a first miscarriage. At that time, we were hopeful that, okay, this might happen again. Maybe there's something that we did. Maybe there's something that the doctors didn't see. And at that time, doctors told us that everything was normal with us. We just had to go home and relax and have a baby. During that time, when we had our first miscarriage, Jerry was in China for business, and I was alone. I felt alone and confused, but as well I was hopeful. 2010, we had another miscarriage after we had been trying, and this came as a shock to us because this was a time where we dedicated to prayer and fasting, believing God for a child. And when the second miscarriage happened, he went with me, and I remember when we came back home, because we were driving in 2 different cars, I was crying all the way. And I was just sitting in my room and I didn't want to go out. I just felt like I could not bear to, withstand another question from someone that's asking me, when are you going to have a baby? It is part of, I would say, your calling, if I were to say, as umakoti, to bear children for the family, And when you are unable to give that as umakoti, then you feel unworthy. It feels like you don't belong there. He already had a son. So all the attention was on me that I've got a problem. There might be a problem with me.
How did you get to a point of saying we're ready as a couple to talk, or rather speak out loud about it?
So how it began, we would receive calls from other couples that we say, we're going through the same journey.
Within your personal space?
Yes, within our personal space. And we would like to please come and see you so you can advise us. And that's how we started talking about it.
Yeah. Did you perhaps try any other methods of conceiving, Pastor Zwane?
Yes. The miracle baby, as Mem Zwane has already said, came once we've given up. But before giving up, before selling the shares, before enjoying the money, so we just had to throw in the towel at some point. But before that, we tried assisted pregnancy. We tried IVF. They also did investigation on my side. So that's also part of coming out. That's part of sharing the story. To say infertility is not a women problem.
Yes.
Though you might have a baby before you met your wife, it doesn't mean that you can't support it. Doesn't mean that you're not a suspect. So we approached it in that manner. My sperm was analyzed, and the doctors did discover that I had a mobility problem. I had also a morphology problem.
Okay.
So I was also part of the treatment. I had to take supplements.
Have you tried other ways to conceive, Karabo? And at what are the costs that are associated? And it's an expensive exercise, I would assume, you know. IVF doesn't, we hear that it's not cheap. Are you perhaps able to share, you know, at what costs this really is associated with for people who are looking at doing it or having it done?
In South Africa, you are looking at around 80,000 rands, between 80 and 100,000 rands for one cycle of IVF. And this does not guarantee the success.
Yes.
Oftentimes, you find couples being bankrupt because they keep going back over and over again to go and try, and it comes back unsuccessful.
Sure. What impact did it have on your relationship as a couple?
One question, as she was relating the story about the pressure from the family, one question that stuck with me, it's when we'll go to my hometown, and she will, out of respect, and say, "Baba Zwane." And then one of the mothers said, "You can't call your husband Mama Zwane because akuzalelwana. So you need to have your own child, ozombiza ngegama lakho uthi Baba kaNdumiso." So that was a big step in her heart. It was a big hurt. So I had to come in there, support. I had to go there, assure her, and say, the fact that we can't bear children together doesn't make you less of a woman.
Of course.
So in some areas, I was found wanting as a husband in terms of, you know, protecting her from the vultures of the family, the aggressive aunt out there, aggressive mother-in-law out there. On one hand, it brought us closer because we never played a blame game.
Yes.
It was always us thing. It was always a family problem.
Yes.
It wasn't a man or a woman problem.
Yeah.
Wow. And I can see the joy in her face when you say that, you know, because I think if I can speak for you, you really felt his support, you know. I'm looking at you and I can tell that it really went a long way. Tell us about Hannah, You Are Not Alone.
Hannah, You Are Not Alone is a non-profitable organization that started in 2018, and it seeks to support couples that are struggling with infertility. So from our journey, we are helping couples to walk their journey and assuring them that they are not alone.
Have you found healing and acceptance?
So from my side, it's really not easy, as we've related the story, pregnancy loss, and every time there's a miscarriage after Ndumiso, you get scared for your life or for your wife's life. As she said, you've lost tubes, and then every time it's a health scare. So at some point, you just have to accept, find healing, and move on. And buying a dog is one of those steps.
For the viewers at home, the miracle baby is here, and he's got his dog with him. He's so cute. He's so cute, and is he the extra kid? Is he the other kid? You're taking care of him and his little friend.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a very important conversation. That was Pastor Zwane and Karabo to share their journey in fertility.